I can't get, as I was just saying, I can't quite get my head around the do's and don'ts on mass gatherings. It's okay, apparently, to stage heaving Black Lives Matter protests. It's fine for Liverpool fans to pack the streets to celebrate winning the league. But the 500,000 fun-loving sun-seekers who flock to Bournemouth Beach are selfish, evil and irresponsible. Go figure. But those who accuse the Beach Boys and girls of not understanding the social distancing rules are just flat out wrong. What we are witnessing, in my view, is what happens after you incarcerate people under effective home arrest for 3 months. They've had enough. They're demonstrably demanding their freedom. They know the rules, but they're theatrically defying them. This is deliberate disobedience. Let's talk to an expert on civil disobedience, and that's Professor Rodney Barker. Hello, Professor.
Good morning.
You're from the London School of Economics, and you've written books on this. Now, in a sense, we are, I think you'll agree, we're in uncharted territory here. Your speciality is, of course, civil disobedience, which requires some sort of organisation. What I think we're seeing here is mass civil disobedience without organisation. It's just happening organically. What's your feeling about these gatherings on the beach, which are extraordinary, aren't they?
Well, they wouldn't be extraordinary if it were ordinary times. That's what you expect to see on the beach on a hot day. But I think you put your finger exactly on it when you said you were not entirely clear what the regulations were. I think if anybody asked you or I, for instance, how far can we travel and with how many other passengers in a car in order to meet the other side of our bubble? Well, I'm not sure.
Yes.
What has happened is that there was a time when the rules were simple and clear.
Yep.
Stay at home. Now, no ifs, no buts, stay at home. As soon as you start saying, well, stay at home unless... In other words, when it becomes a complicated tax system, and there are all kinds of loopholes, on the one hand, people don't bother. It's just too complicated because by the time you work out what you can do or can't do, the moment has passed. And when, of course, you see the Cummingses of this world apparently finding the most extraordinary lockdowns, let-outs. I was going to have my eyes tested. The feeling is definitely, well...
No, you weren't, Dominic.
It's all right for us.
Yeah, he said he was testing out his eyes because he wanted to take a much longer journey. I don't think a single person in the country believed him. It was a silly schoolboy fib, I think. But I take your point that the messages coming out from the government are confusing. And one thing that you can rest assured is if you say, as Boris did, we're starting to come out of lockdown, people will take that as we are out of lockdown. So this is now happening. But a wiser man than me said, you cannot incarcerate 65 million people for 3 months without expecting there to be any effects. And what we're seeing now is something strange and organic. Would you agree with that?
Well, it's certainly not planned. There's certainly no organisation. But in a way, the very structure of regulations and deregulations, which the government is, almost making it up as it goes along from day to day, encourages people to make individual decisions. And so, in a sense, what you see are a whole series of individuals, of people saying, well, on balance, a trip to the beach is probably necessary for my health because I haven't got enough sun, and it may not be the same for everybody else. But if everybody makes that kind of decision and individual calculation, what you end up is what we've seen. Huge parties, packed beaches, and an infection level which is certainly for the moment seems to have stalled and to be going along at level or even flicking up slightly.
Yeah, they might get away with that. There isn't much evidence that around the world there's ever been a second wave of this coronavirus, but we don't know. But do you think that what we're seeing now, as I say, I can't overstress this. I've thought for weeks now that the number of people out on the streets is strange. It's supernatural, preternatural. It's unusual. More people are out than ever before. And do you think it's got something to do with that? This is vaguely a free country. When they did the lockdown in places like China, it was totally successful. People are used to rules there and they are used to obeying them. We're not used to this kind of micro ruling, these kind of micro laws. And so do you think there's some sort of reaction against this, that the population of Britain are just sick to death with being told what to do by these cabinet ministers?
I don't think it's quite as straightforward as that. I think it's a mixture of sick to death of being told that we're all in this together. It's a bit like Orwell's skit on Russian equality. All men are equal except some are more equal than others.
Yes.
The government has almost been saying the rules apply to everybody. Unless they don't. And the don't, of course, tend to be ministers with country houses. Or special advisors, and then you do get the situation like this. Complicated rules always invite people to find ways around them. Just imagine what it would be like if the government passed a law tomorrow saying everybody must drive on the left unless they have good reason to drive on the right.
That wouldn't be surprised of this government at the moment. Let me ask you this. This is a bit of a mischievous question, but I can't help thinking it. I think that some of these cabinet ministers, and I'm not mentioning names, Matt Hancock, are rather enjoying their role right now as the kind of Warden Hodges of the nation, telling us what to do. Put that light out, do that, don't do that, don't do that. They're rather enjoying it, and that is only adding to this confusing situation.
Well, not in the case of Matt Hancock, I must say. When I look at him, I see a man who's getting more and more miserable and less happy with what he's being required to do.
Right.
No, I don't think it's that. If one were a sort of conspiracy theorist, if, in other words, you assume that politicians were even more cunning than we think they are, then to say we're changing the rules, we're moving towards lockdown, unlock, but of course it's up to you.
Yeah.
Then when things start going wrong, you can simply say, well, people are irresponsible. Nothing to do with us, Governor. We've done our best. It's moving responsibility to somebody else all the time. Wow. The wrong experts, the wrong science, irresponsible people, the weather, anything but us.
Well, I'll tell you something, Rodney, that after all this, there is going to be the mother of all public inquiries, and it will all come out in the wash. But I do think there's something that we have never seen before, possibly ever, going on right now, which is this strange explosion of people just coming out on the streets and defying the government because they're fed up being locked up. But interesting stuff. Thank you very much, Professor. That's Professor Rodney Barker from the London School of Economics. I'm